Leaders of the Government of National Unity parties are deep in budget meetings after Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana postponed the tabling of the 2025 national budget to the 12th of March. As we look ahead to that day, our business reporter Ntokozo Khumalo will be helping us understand the workings of the national budget. She's with us and she's joining us in studio. So Ntokozo, you made some comparison about the budget speech to our... I know it has 7 colors, but it's actually several.
Several colors. I think most of our lives we knew it as 7 colors.
Yeah, that's how my bubble got burst this morning. It's actually called several colors. It's not 7 colors. But anyway, so comparison to the several colors that South Africa is so used to, compare that to our budget.
Well, I think that just gives an indication or comparison of what takes place when we look at a national budget. And with a lot of people probably working on their own budgets at this time of the month themselves, I thought it's a good description to sort of describe and explain the national budget. But seeing that some of us might be paid, we might spoil ourselves a little bit. So I'm going to use the poke bowl as that example. And basically what the poke bowl is, it's a whole lot of different ingredients coming together, the base of the poke bowl being the rice, which is where, you know, you get that sustenance from, and that is basically the revenue that the country does draw in. All the other ingredients that get added on top of that being, of course, then the expenses, which then Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has the task of ensuring that it's spread out to, so things like healthcare and so on. But I did hear from one economist who sort of explains to us what a national budget actually is in context of a poke salad bowl. So let's take a listen.
When we look at the components of spending or the basket of goods that the government can spend on, be it health, education, social grants, electricity, SOEs, road infrastructure, which one of these becomes the rice of the bowl, the sustenance of the bowl? Thereafter, we start to think, okay, but now rice might give us a lot of sustenance. What's going to give us nutritional value? So now we're going to come into our greens before we go into what are the nice to haves of the poke bowl, like the salmon or the edamame beans or something really spectacular but quite expensive. So maybe there's some tomatoes in there or some spinach, and that would be where the healthcare comes in and unemployment comes in. So we need people to work. We need people to be educated so that they can work. So that is your next tier of priority in the budget.
So, Aldrin, we did see, of course, the national budget being postponed, and we did see how those disagreements on how the budget is laid out can lead to, you know, those delays in actually getting that information, disagreements over how this revenue is generated or even spent. So we are waiting for the 12th of March to figure out how then the budget has been reconfigured. And like any budget, if you look at your personal budget, if you don't know how much money you're bringing in, it's hard to determine where or what expenses will take priority and what expenses you need to cut out. So for an example, if you are to order a poke bowl, you know, after your show, you might need to take out the salmon, because the salmon is the nice to have. It's the expensive item in the bowl. And as Hannah said, things like your tomatoes and so on, bringing in the nutrition. So when we liken that to the budget, that's things like healthcare, that's things like education, spending the funds there. But of course, if your budget is not quite balancing, there are things that may need to fall by the wayside. And let's hear what one economist had to say when it comes to the national budget and some of the things that we've seen over the years slowly fall by the wayside as National Treasury struggles to really balance the books.
The big elephant in the room is how much we pay for debt service costs. So, you know, as I said, we're borrowing every day. We borrow R1 billion a day in borrowing, but at the same time, we have to pay back the interest on what we borrowed, and those debt service costs are 382 billion. So to put that in context, we spend more on interest than we do on healthcare. What government has not been able to do is keep things rising with inflation. And one of the reasons is because the wage bill has been growing faster than inflation. So because the wage bill is going up by faster than inflation, government hasn't been able to put up other things by inflation because something kind of has to give in the balance. And in actual fact, over the last few years, social grants have gone up by less than inflation. Another area where government hasn't been increasing spending that much has actually been in education. And so there's quite a big shortfall at the moment in education. And the third area where there's a shortfall has been in healthcare.
So as we, of course, wait then for the 12th of March, Aldrin, it's important to note that clearly all ingredients are important to make a national budget work, just as if we are to prepare for that several colors on Sunday.
I wanted to put it on, make sure that I have it on my phone.
Several colors on Sunday. You need to then figure out what you actually have in your budget and whether you can afford to have more than one protein on your plate this coming Sunday. But we'll wait for the 12th of March then to see how then National Treasury will just maneuver to ensure that its pork salad bowl or the country's several colors, which is the budget, actually balances out.
Okay, so according to Ntokozo, it is not 7 colors, but it is
several colors.
Okay, and that's how our life changes. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. And Ntokozo Khumalo there on the budget speech that wasn't delivered.